Here's the thing. I have a lot of Steam games. I've played a lot of Steam games. I even have some that I have not played. I once calculated my total Steam playtime, and it was over a year straight. That was 6 years ago, and I'm afraid to do the math again for fear of deepening my existential dread. So, rather than ruminating on my past of playing far too many games on Steam, I figured I'd simply play all of them, analyze them, review them, and rate them. Who am I, though? My name is Billy Grimm, a college-trained game designer with a love for this art form that goes back as long as I can remember. Thus far, my own game creation projects have been small or long-term, but if I rank every game that I have on Steam, then surely I'll be able to pour that knowledge into my own craft and create something truly great. Or maybe I just want to play video games and pretend that it's work. Maybe I'm essentially giving myself college homework because it's familiar to me. Or maybe we'll pass the time until we all return to dust. Regardless, for your sake, beloved viewer, I will do my best to be entertaining throughout. So, how does this work? Well, there's a couple of ground rules to keep this challenge on the rails, and to make it theoretically possible to do one of these on over 400 games. Rule number 1, we're going to go in a random order through all of my games. All of the games in my Steam library, as of this moment, are added to the wheel. There's a lot of these bastards. Look closely to spoil future video topics. We'll be spinning this bad boy at the start of each video, no rerolls. Games that aren't playable, however, or are functionally identical to a newer version or a more comprehensive version, like a beta versus a full release. Also Steam software that's not games, that's all gonna get cut from the wheel. Rule 2. Every game gets a fair shake, with serious analysis and research. While replaying each game to make the video, I have to progress far enough to get a full taste of what the game has to offer. To that end, each game also gets its own tier list, or similar meme culture assessment, to make certain that I've formed unnecessary opinions about the property. And I'll try to get a relatively obscure achievement as well. I'll do my best to put myself in the mindset of the game's target audience, and treat each game with the level of respect that creating it deserves. It's a lot of work. Rule number 3, every game gets a score. Each game will be scored based on my extremely secret rubric that I explain more fully as we move through the video. That way we can objectively decide which game in my Steam library is the best, so that I can delete the rest of them. To give you the basic rundown of the categories, I'm grading the games on Actualization, Optimization, Play, and Verisimilitude. I considered using a more established scholarly structure proposed by a scientific paper. I considered saying ludology every episode, I really did. But ultimately I decided that I would create a method that reflects how I actually organize the elements of a game in my mind. That's enough rambling though. Let's spin the wheel and do some motherfucking Steam cleaning. Our very first episode will be on the topic of Rogue Tower. Rogue Tower is all in the title. A roguelike tower defense game that takes a new look at both genres. You may be asking yourself how a tower defense game can be a roguelike, and the answer is twofold. Each run is different because the player generates the map themselves by expanding the enemy's path to start each round. Secondly, each run is different because you pick cards that define what towers and other buildings you can actually build. In between each run, you spend XP earned from the runs to add cards to that pool permanently, or to gain flat bonuses for every run. When I started the research for this video, I had already upgraded the tree quite a bit, and I wanted to experience the upgrades as a proper extension of the gameplay loop. That means you get to watch me delete my previous 30 hours of progress in this game. Oof. Now we're good to jump into some gameplay and analysis. I started by playing about 10 hours on stream and proceeded to get my ass handed to me by some goblins.
Hi, I'm Peter Kate. I'm president of the Bigfoot community. I can state without a doubt that is an actual goblin.
I knew going in from my previous experience that this game is a a little harder than your average tower defense. There's a little more of a learning curve. That's pretty common in roguelikes, but I wasn't expecting a secondary learning curve coming back to the game after a few years. Really illustrated to me how important and impactful the meta upgrade system is, but more than that, I actually needed to relearn some skills that just don't transfer over automatically from the dozens of other tower defenses and roguelikes that I've played. I think that really illustrates how this game has not only merged the two genres, but also sort of created its own space outside of them. There are things that just wouldn't work in other tower defense games, like the stacking price of towers each time you purchase one. This sort of dissuades you from creating one tower that is your ultimate tower that you're upgrading all the time, and it also creates you from just spamming one tower across the entire map, like quantity over quality. You have to thread the needle, and that makes the strategy a little bit more interesting, because a lot of tower defense games can become a little mindless once you realize which tower is the one that you need to get completely upgraded. After a few rounds, I built up that upgrade system and got a few new towers in my arsenal, which helped to not get obliterated on the regular.
Particularly important for a beast like me, because most of the ways I lose in this game is by going to 0 HP, so the more HP we have, the less likely that's going to come to pass. Boom.
I explored the different game modes, including more paths, which really alters the strategy of tower placement and the generation of the map. There's also Splitsville, which personally I love, even though it's very hard. It ramps up the number of path splits that you get by a lot, leading to more enemy entrance points and fewer kill zones. It also creates a density of paths that some towers, like the Vampire Lair or the Biplane, can really take advantage of. March of the Monsters adds negative cards in addition to your normal upgrade cards, which adds a fun twist to the gameplay and a new challenge to overcome. There are 15 towers in the game, which seem like the obvious topic for this video's tier list. Rogue Tower also has an achievement for winning a run with any given tower, plus the basic Ballista Tower. Naturally, this meant that I should do 15 tower-specific runs, hope I get one of the achievements, and make myself a list. Fortunately, I got the achievement on my very first run with this mindset, the Mortar. Sticks and stones under my belt? Let's go ahead and rank the first two towers. The Ballista is the standard. Medium range, medium attack rate, direct fire. It primarily targets health, one of the 3 possible health bar resources an enemy can have, alongside armor and shield. It's reliable, you can't miss, and it's highly upgradable. It is more or less the benchmark, so we're giving it B tier. The Mortar is an indirect fire weapon, meaning it's predicting the enemy's path and firing a shot to intercept. It can miss, it struggles with fast-moving targets, and it primarily damages armor. The largest advantages are the Mortar's long range and splash damage, allowing it to be relevant throughout the whole round and devastate hordes of enemies. While interviewing the developer, Andrew Mason, he mentioned that when he added the Mortar, he also knew he needed to add a customizable targeting system, because that's how you make this tower really shine. Personally, I like to make it target the highest armor and the slowest moving enemies, allowing it to focus mostly on these sort of carrier guys that split up into more troops. You can always customize each individual mortar to make it so that they're hitting the whole line of approaching enemies, and not all wasting damage concentrating on a single spot. I really love this feature. I really like the tower. We're gonna give it A tier. Since I got the achievement right away, I started working on multiple towers for the tier list per run. First, I tried to do another achievement by building no ballistas and focusing on the Shredder, the Cannon, and the Tesla Coil. The Cannon is a splash damage weapon that still targets with direct fire, allowing the cannonballs to fly through multiple enemies, potentially splitting or exploding based on your upgrades. It's fun and another unique tower that showcases the game's mechanics well. A tier. The Shredder fires saw blades that trace along the path, hitting multiple enemies. It specializes in health damage and bleed over time effects, and has this fun little bug/feature where saw blades can persist between rounds, I'm gonna give it A tier. The Tesla coil uses electricity to create a small area of effect that mostly damages shields and uses up mana. It's fine, but it doesn't really have any cool upgrades and it's a little underwhelming. C tier. Next up, I tried, rather unsuccessfully, to do the Frostkeep plus Ballista achievement. The Frostkeep slows down enemies and does health damage. The main bonus here is that you can get upgrades to stack slow, or turn those stacks of slow into damage. Not to mention how useful staggering enemy waves are, or just slowing down those super fast enemies. I'm gonna have to call this one our first S-tier tower. After the failure of my last single tower run, I reverted to my multi-tower strategy, because as of the time of writing this, I've been working on this video for a month. This time, I went with poison sprayers and the vampire layer. The layer is a really slow, really long range area of effect tower. It just hits everything. It's primarily targeting health and it consumes mana. It's a good addition to the arsenal and wasn't in the game back when I played it the first time. I really like it in Splitsville or a multi-defense, but on single track it tends to be a little underwhelming, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Poison sprayers are a fast, small area of effect tower that targets shielding and, unsurprisingly, focuses on inflicting poison damage. They also use up mana, and generally I find them to be one of the worst options for taking out shield. I'm gonna give them C tier. Next round, I played with some funky ones, the Minefield Encampment, the Sword Monument, and the Radio. Each of these are a little unintuitive and work a little differently than the other towers. The Radio calls in air support from a high health damage, localized splash damage dealing biplane. It's my favorite tower, conceptually, and I can't overstate how much atmosphere and air force adds to a tower defense game. S tier. The Monument summons little swords that chase enemies around, stabbing them continuously, even after they exit the range of the tower. At first, I hated this tower, because it felt like the swords do nothing, and most of them, it becomes a lot more useful when it's upgraded. But, after doing this run, I saw the light a little bit, and we're not going to give the Monument B tier, it's going to sit up here at C tier. The Encampment lays out landmines that build up on the path within its reach. They do the most damage to armor, and are extremely satisfying to place near the entrance to the tower as a last line of defense. I will grant them B tier. The last three towers don't work super well together, and they work even worse together when you don't use ballistas, but, I've already done it, so we have the classic flamethrower, the lookout tower, and the particle cannon. The flamethrower is very similar to the poison sprayer, just causing fire and armor damage rather than poison and shield. They are basically the same tower, but the particle effects are pretty. C tier. The lookout tower simply marks an enemy to receive multiplied damage from other towers, making it an entirely supporting role. I do like building it, but because of the way that the game sort of implicitly punishes you for spreading your upgrades across towers, it's hard to justify strategically. I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Finally, we have the particle cannon. The longest range, the biggest damage, and extremely slow firing. It does the most damage to shields, and uses a fair bit of mana, but it's excellent for taking out boss enemies. I'm gonna give this one B tier. Alright, so that wraps up our little tier list section. Those games have given me a lot of playtime and things to talk about in the rating portion of the video. But first, let's go ahead and delete D tier because it's a D tier tier, and then also move Tesla Coil to F, get fucked. That leads us to the first area I'm assessing the game on, Actualization. How close is the game to the creative vision of the team? Are the players having the intended feelings and thinking the right thoughts in response to your stimuli? People like to talk about immersion, and it's a big focus for both game companies and game studies. But I think that immersion is really a collection of other elements that are easier to nail down. The first one of these elements, in my opinion, is actualization. In order to be immersive, your communication to the player must be impeccable. In short, Information can't turn into immersion if the player gets the wrong information. Rogue Tower is really well actualized. Got a meower? The design goals of this game are pretty clear to reverse engineer. They want to step outside the lines of both genres and bring in a non-traditional mechanic to make a new kind of tower defense. And they've done it. In my interview with Andrew Mason, he put it a little bit more eloquently. Truly, the most important motivation behind this was the core experience I wanted Rogue Tower to have: growth. Every tower has a clear vision for how it should function, and how it opens new options for the player. The game builds from simplicity up to a satisfying overstimulation, and you can tell that that's how you were meant to feel. It really is a game primarily driven by growth, in the incremental tower upgrades, the tower price increases driving you to expand your arsenal, and especially in the agency over the growth of the map. Now, the UI can be a little clunky at times, maybe not in the state it would have been left in if there were more resources or more time available, but it gets the job done, and it doesn't hurt the score too much. The visual identity is also a little bit of a mixed bag. Don't get me wrong, I love the towers, I love the way they look, and I like the way the enemies look too, but the towers are easy to identify. At a glance, the enemies not so much. In the late game, it can become a little hard to tell what enemies are actually being thrown at you, with how crowded everything can become. Andrew talked about bringing in RPG elements, both in the individual sense of each tower, but also in the visuals and the vibes of the game, and I think it serves the game really well here. Most of where Rogue Tower lacks in actualization is just polish. There are a lot of things that feel missing from the game, not in a mechanical sense, but in a holistic sense. An example of this are these empty void spaces that can be formed when your pathing leaves a gap. There's nothing wrong with this, it doesn't impact the game, but it's a place where you can see the size of the development team a little bit. And I'm willing to bet that something cool would have been implemented to fill these spaces and bring in more mechanics if they had the time and resources. For actualization, I'm going to give Rogue Tower 21 points. You don't have any reference for that yet, and neither do I, actually, but trust me, it's a pretty good score. Now, we've touched on some mechanics, but let's take a deeper look at the play and structure of Rogue Tower. When we're talking about play from a scholarly perspective, it's defined as a self-chosen action that is intrinsically valuable, imaginative, guided by a set of rules or structure, and active while also being low stress. That's a mouthful, but it's describing kind of a complicated thing. Johann Huizinga put it like this in his 1955 book Homo Ludens.
Play is a free activity, standing quite consciously outside ordinary life, as not being serious, but at the same time absorbing the player intensely and utterly. It is an activity connected with no material interest. No profit can be gained by it. It proceeds within its own proper boundaries of time and space, according to fixed rules and an orderly manner.
Rest in peace, Johann. You would have loved Minecraft. What does all of this mean when applied to video games, though? Or more specifically, Rogue Tower? Well, it's our measure of, is the game fun? Humans seek out this state of play naturally, and a video game is just another evolution of playing with sticks in the yard. Which means that it needs to be entertaining and intrinsically fulfilling enough to prevent us from just going back to our backyard sword fight. This state of play is also another precursor for immersion, and even the legendary flow state. So, how does Rogue Tower stack up in this category? It's fun! While playing it, I am focused on the actions within the game. I'm thinking about new combinations of towers or upgrades. I'm watching the battle unfold, and even when there's downtime where I can't directly interact with the gameplay, my mind remains occupied. That's not an easy trick in today's ADHD world. Even when I had already planned on a round being my last, I would find myself extending the stream for another round or two just to try a new tower or combination. My imagination was engaged as I tried to picture the best ways the paths might bend, and the rules of the game are clear and open enough that I'm not pulled out of my fun because I didn't understand something. There's also a sort of programming in the targeting system, allowing the player to essentially control the AI of each turret, which only deepens the play and adds another level of strategy to boot. While researching background and context for this game, I came across this FAQ from the developer where he talks about why there's not a fast forward button, and it gave me a lot of insight for my actualization score. But he also makes an interesting point. In this game, the time that you spend unable to take an action, at least mostly, is also part of the play. The game is built to play like a sit-down restaurant, where you have to wait for a waiter and your food to cook, but the meal is hopefully worth it. You have to wait. That's part of the rules, and it makes it a little bit more satisfying to reach the end of the round. I brought this up in our interview as well, and he still stands by his reasoning. But he does acknowledge that there are some instances where the lack of a fast-forward button can hurt the game. Classic, like waiting for a lone zombie to wander into range. He talked about making very subtle changes in Rogue Tower 2, which will hopefully address this issue, and says that so far they've been working well. And he also brings up that it's a subtle problem, and a speed-up button is not a very subtle answer. I can't help but agree with that. So Rogue Tower does not lose any points for wasting time. For play, I'm going to give Rogue Tower 20 points. I will be taking a little bit off in optimization, however. This category is defined simply as, how does this video game function as a piece of software? How is the user experience? The interface, the text readability, the performance, how much work does it take to run the game on a normal PC? You might think of these as things external to the game, not a part of the pure artistic spirit of the media, and instead, the necessary shell that surrounds it. To that dear viewer, I say hogwash. The video game is a holistic art form, and the user experience will affect every other element throughout. This means that every optimization decision is a design decision, an artistic choice. Our friend Rogue Tower has a few minor sticking points here. The jank in the UI that we've already talked about a little bit. Performance in the late game, even on a high-end setup, but for the most part, this is a well-made game, and I think that's largely because of its smaller scope. The performance issues are minor, and in a game of this type, reaction time is far from the most important gameplay element. The UI is janky, but not broken. There are hotkeys to show or hide various elements of the UI that lets you get out of any annoying menu situations that you put yourself into. A lot of the UI is also what we might call programmer art, purely functional with little stylistic consideration, but that's extremely forgivable in an indie game. For optimization, I'm giving Rogue Tower 17 juicy points. That brings us to the fourth and final category for today and for all days: verisimilitude. In addition to being my favorite word in the English language, it's also my favorite part of games. All games are an illusion, a narrative, a fictitious situation to facilitate your state of play. Verisimilitude is a measure of how bought into that illusion you are. It literally means having the appearance of being real or true. Do the individual elements, mechanics, design decisions, art pieces, etc., do they all support the believability of the narrative of the game and the believability of the world? Now, Rogue Tower is not a game that's trying to tell a complex story or suck you into a gorgeous vista that makes you forget about your troubles. And while a riveting narrative with gripping, realistic characters is an excellent way to generate verisimilitude, it's not the only one. And even in a game that doesn't focus on this, still benefits from putting a little bit of work into it. The minimalistic art of the game is pretty uniform in quality and has a charming voxel RPG style that brings some life into the goblins attacking your tower. Fundamentally, everything in the game helps to sell that you've got a tower and you gotta defend it. Once again, the game comes back to that core concept of growth, as everything is expanding outwards to protect this central tower, and you feel it when you're playing. You feel that intention, that theme of growth permeated throughout the gameplay. There are also some of these adorable dialogue lines that pop up at certain moments from your enemies. They get excited when they get close to the tower, and they despair when their allies fall around them. The UI, as much as I ragged on it in the last section, also supports the verisimilitude by being so simplistic and out of the way. It does not interfere with your fiction of being the godlike city manager defending the all-important tower. In this way, I feel the verisimilitude of Rogue Tower is rich. The emergent storytelling of semi-random generation leads you to mentally coming up with little stories. Oogie being defeated by towers is fine, but Oogie falling victim to the dreaded Cannon Hallway or the Ballista Village, it starts to make a story out of pixels and numbers. Once again, where the game comes up short in this department is not where it's done things wrong, but simply where things aren't included. I can't say that this game has as much verisimilitude as a well-crafted story that grasps you so thoroughly you forget about the woes of your actual life. But it is also doing everything it can to commit to the fiction of the game without shifting the focus off of the mechanics and what's important about Rogue Tower. And I respect that. So, for verisimilitude, I'm giving Rogue Tower 11 points. That's gonna bring us to our final tally for Rogue Tower. 69. Nice. I did not do that on purpose, I promise. A score of 69 brings it right to the top of the ratings, and also to the bottom of the ratings. 69 out of what, you may ask? Nothing. It's a boundless scale, like One Piece power levels or the United States debt. It's not 69%, it's just 69 points. Live with it. I have no idea if 69 will prove to be a score to be reckoned with. But what I do know is that Rogue Tower is a banger of a game, and if you've ever enjoyed a tower defense game, I bet you'll enjoy this. Rogue Tower 2 is in the works, with multiplayer functionality planned, and personally, I can't wait. Thanks for sticking around for all this rambling. If you did, and if you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed to stick around for episode 2. I'd really like to thank Andrew Mason for being kind enough to answer some of my research questions, and for Farland for letting me use some of his cover of the OST. With that, I'll see you on the next episode of Steam Cleaning.